Today from the global lane, impeachment on steroids, intelligence community whistleblower, or Trump saboteur. Trump-China policy, learning some lessons from Ronald Reagan's playbook. Mattel unveils a new line of gender-neutral dolls. Corporate salvation through political correctness. President Xi says no force can shake China. But the big red dragon is already quaking over Trump tariffs and trade. And it's all right here on the global lane. Democrats and the mainstream media have characterized the person who filed a complaint about President Trump's phone call to the Ukrainian president as a whistleblower. The impression is that he or she is an intelligence officer, a true patriot, protecting America and the Constitution from abuse. But our next guest suggests the person is not a whistleblower at all, but a saboteur. Former Congressman Bob Barr was House impeachment manager during President Bill Clinton's impeachment. Mr. Barr is also a former CIA analyst. He's now president and CEO of the Law Enforcement Education Foundation. Congressman Barr, it's good to see you again, sir. And tell us, why do you think this whistleblower is actually a saboteur?
The whole notion of a whistleblower, particularly in the intelligence business, is someone who uncovers something that is an urgent matter that would not otherwise get out and that relates to foreign intelligence classified information. What we see in this particular case involving the July 25th conversation between President Trump and the president of Ukraine has nothing whatsoever to do with the foundation for an intelligence community whistleblower in the first place. It does not concern classified material relating to foreign intelligence and abuses relating to foreign intelligence. And when you look at the complaint that was compiled by the so-called whistleblower, it becomes clear when you look at that that this person has deep animus toward the president and has been putting or had been putting together a compendium of information gathered from various sources, second and third hand information, over a long period of time, at least going back several months this year, and then sort of struck when he or she thought the moment was right to basically go after President Trump. This is not a patriot. This is not somebody that has pure motives, such as was characterized by the Director of National Intelligence last week. And moreover, when the Inspector General for the intelligence community, which is the person to whom the so-called whistleblower sends his complaint before sending it to the Congress, when that person reviewed it, Mr. Atkinson is the intelligence community inspector general's name. He did not even listen to the underlying conversation or read the transcript of the July 25th call. So how in the world this inspector general decided legitimately that this was an urgent matter involving foreign intelligence and classified material without even looking at or listening to the underlying call is really a mystery to me. It's either gross incompetence or he was trying to enable and assist the so-called whistleblower.
Now, President Trump has taken on the deep state of the U.S. intelligence community, and Senator Chuck Schumer, you remember, warned President Trump before he became president that intelligence officials have, quote, 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Is this what's happening right now, Congressman, a serious game of gotcha?
It definitely appears to be that. There has been tension between President Trump and the intelligence community, particularly career operatives within the intelligence community, since even before President Trump was sworn into office in January of 2017. So it's not surprising, in a sense, that it would be intelligence operatives that are behind this sabotage of the Trump administration.
Now, you managed the impeachment of Bill Clinton for the House. What's the difference with this impeachment inquiry of President Trump?
The difference is like night and day between what we looked at in 1998 in the impeachment of President Clinton and what the Democrat majority in the House is doing now with regard to President Trump. Back in 1998, we, of course, started with the Starr report, the very lengthy report that was compiled by independent counsel Kenneth Starr. He sent that to the Hill in September of 1998, and that was an exhaustive compendium, an exhaustive analysis, if you will, of potential impeachable offenses, which Judge Starr was required by law to send to the House of Representatives. What we did in the House and in the Judiciary Committee at that time, under the leadership of Henry Hyde, is we took that report, we held hearings, we supplemented it with updated material, and passed out of the Judiciary Committee 4 articles of impeachment against President Clinton that were very clear, very precise, very well supported, showing that the president had committed 4 violations of federal criminal law. Very different now what's happening. The House seems to have been throwing everything they can think of up on the wall to see if anything would stick of an impeachable nature. They finally now have seized on this July 25th phone conversation and this so-called whistleblower report. So that apparently is the horse they've decided to run with. But it still is very unclear that there is anything at all in this incident that would rise to the level of an impeachable offense. I certainly don't see it. And I've looked very carefully at all of the material that's been made available publicly.
Well, what do you think? Quickly, we're running out of time here. What do you think is going to happen in all this?
I think the Democrats have gotten on their horse. They're going to run with it, no matter how bad it is, no matter which direction it takes it in, because they are absolutely committed to do anything they can between now and the next year election to undermine, destroy President Trump. So they're going to proceed with it. I don't think it will help them, but they will proceed.
Okay, former Congressman Bob Barr, President and CEO of the Law Enforcement Education Foundation. Thank you for providing those insights.
My pleasure, Gary.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
President Trump says the United States is making progress on trade with China. So he recently lifted tariffs on 400 Chinese products. The products exempted include laminated wood flooring, circuit boards, tiny Christmas lights, and dog collars. Well, here to provide us with some insights on Trump and China trade is Harry Kazianis. He's Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest. Harry, always good to see you. And I know in a recent opinion piece you recently wrote for Fox News, you talked about Trump's China policy. You suggested it's really a policy of containment. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what Donald Trump is doing is he's literally taking the old containment playbook that Ronald Reagan used to defeat the Soviet Union and applying it to China. And actually, I'd argue what Donald Trump is trying to do is even tougher than what Ronald Reagan tried to do. I think if you compare the Soviet Union really at its height to China today, I would actually argue that China is much more powerful. They have an economy worth something like $13 trillion. They innovate a lot of products that Americans buy. I mean, all you have to do is go to Walmart, any store, and probably the bulk of the things you're buying come from China in one shape or another. So what Trump has done is not only try to take on China and contain their rise, but I think something more important, to contain the foundations of that rise, which is their economic power, which they're essentially leveraging to harm U.S. interests. So irrespective of what you think of the president, I think it's a smart move.
Well, Harry, I know about this because I was in Washington covering Ronald Reagan at the time. He had a clear strategy to bring down the Soviet Union. He even issued many secret national security directives to hurt the USSR economically. Now, how much of Trump's strategy is actually coming from Ronald Reagan's playbook, especially on that?
Well, I think a lot of the people around President Trump, I'm sure Mike Pompeo, the new National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, he is very much a student of Ronald Reagan. I know him personally and know that very well. I think a lot of these people have gone back and basically done their homework and reread history and understood that a lot of the weaknesses that the Soviet Union has, China has. I mean, for example, the way that the Soviet Union would contain their people's hopes, dreams, freedoms, aspirations is very similar in a lot of the respects to the things that the Chinese are doing, except the Chinese are using all of their advanced technology to essentially subjugate their own population. So I think that's something that Donald Trump will use to his advantage. I also think one of the things that Trump understands quite well is in order to be a superpower and to be the strongest superpower that you can, you have to have a vibrant and growing economy where people are allowed to innovate, develop the best goods and services you can, and quite frankly, the best military products on the planet. Trump has done that. The economy is doing very well, something Ronald Reagan obviously did. And if you compare that to where China is today, the Chinese are not growing at those 10 to 11% rates that they were. In fact, a lot of people say the Chinese economy is actually contracting. So I think the lessons are quite frankly, pretty spectacular comparing the two.
And of course, the Soviet Union was a big threat to the United States militarily. Russia still is, I guess, because of all of its nuclear weapons. But it seems that China is a greater threat to us economically. Your thoughts on that? Military, economic, which is the bigger threat?
100% economic, because we have to understand the only way a nation like China can have an advanced military, aircraft carriers, submarines, cyber capabilities, is you need to have that economic and industrial foundation to do that. And that is really where the threat from China comes from. The Chinese don't innovate and create, goods, products, and services that they can sell to the world. Most of the time, they steal them. They've stolen trillions of dollars in assets from the United States. A lot of it is military goods. They've stolen a lot of plans for our aircraft carriers, submarines, missile defense systems. So this is the nature of the threat. And it's a real shame that the Obama administration did not take this on when Chinese power was growing exponentially. Now it's left for President Trump to handle, and he has a tall task ahead of him.
So how badly is China hurting economically because of the Trump tariffs? I know at least 100 Western companies have closed factories, have moved, or at least reduced their operations out of China. It seems like China is no longer the go-to country for business. So what's happening there?
Well, they're debilitating. I mean, my own sources on the ground in different areas, and a lot of the industrial heartland of China are telling me factories are closing up. And interesting enough, a lot of factories in different goods and services that were built in China are moving to Vietnam. In fact, Vietnam's economy and ports are blowing through the roof because they don't have the industrial capacity to absorb all of this. Their ports can't even output all of the stuff that they want to send to the United States. So it's having a debilitating effect. The other thing that this is doing is it's exacerbating a bigger problem China has, and that's debt. The Chinese don't like to explain this, but their debt to GDP, when you take all the stuff that's off the books, is something like 260% to GDP. That is 2.5 times our national debt, roughly. So the Chinese are literally what they're having to do is going to bail out a lot of these state-owned enterprises that make a lot of these goods and services, and that adds to their debt. Eventually, you could even see China have a debt crisis.
Okay, Harry, we've got about 30 seconds here. So look into your crystal ball. What do you think is going to happen? Will China cave in on the trade issue, or are they going to wait out Trump's presidency?
I think what you're going to see is both sides actually agree to a short-term deal, just for now. I think Trump wants to make sure the economy is strong. I think he's going to take a strategic pause, which I think for right now, that's the right thing to do. But when Trump gets elected, all bets are off. He's going to go hard on China.
Okay. Harry Kazianis, Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest. Thank you for those insights.
Thanks for having me.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
The Mattel company has just released a new doll called the Creatable World doll. The toy maker says it's designed to keep labels out and invite everyone in. The new line of dolls are gender neutral, so kids can, quote, create their own customizable characters again and again. The doll could be a boy one day, dressed as a girl the next day, however you feel. Critics of the move say it's another attempt by a U.S. corporation to influence our culture by being politically correct. Well, here to discuss more about corporate political correctness is Dan Celia, President and CEO of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries. Dan, I noticed Mattel's stock has dropped drastically, about 32% in the past year. Seems like it might be an attempt to turn things around. Do you think being PC will work for them or any corporation?
Well, it's not going to work for them. They've got deep problems. I don't think this is their answer to appeal to a small segment, a minority of the population. So I don't really think that's going to work. It's a good try on their part, I guess. But, this whole notion that corporations are going to be focused much more on what they would call socially conscious is not really a good move. And I think already some are starting to figure that out.
Why should corporations stay out of the culture war, Dan?
Corporations that are publicly traded should only have one goal, and that is to bring value. So if you're a CEO of a corporation, your job is you have a mandate from your board to add value to the company. You should be putting all your resources and money into expanding, growing, and making that corporation the best it can be for its stockholders and their end users or consumers or whatever it might be. But that's where all their attention should be. So if they flip hamburgers for a living, their goal ought to be to flip as many as they can, to grow their business, to add value to their bottom line and their stock, not trying to fight the culture war. Let the culture warriors on the left and those on the right do whatever it is they're doing to fight the culture war. For most corporations, they would say that it is socially responsible for them to make sure that Planned Parenthood stays in existence and to be able to support Planned Parenthood. They see that as a social issue. They would say that it is socially irresponsible for us as a corporation to be investing in fossil fuel or being in the business of fossil fuel, because after all, that they have a social responsibility for the environment, and that is thereby destroying the environment. I mean, socially responsibility is not for corporate America to decide. It's very, very subjective, to say the least, and allow the American people to decide what their values are and what they deem as socially responsible.
I know the boycott of Target, when they went to sex-neutral bathrooms, led to a big drop in their profits, at least for a while. Do boycotts work? What's the best way for Christian investors to fight the culture war, Dan?
Well, I think boycotts are a part of it. They definitely work because they raise awareness to the general public. And I always think that's good. So boycotts are important. I mean, we at our ministry, we try to attack the bottom line of companies by telling people not to invest in those companies, buy their stock. I think that has a dramatic impact. We have seen the results of that. But, you know, it is the lunacy of what corporate America is doing, and Target's a perfect example, is you are appealing by the New York Times measure to 0.0043% of the population. Now, the corporate America would say, that Target would say, well, yeah, but there's people that are sympathetic to that we are appearing to. There are people that think we ought to be tolerant of that we are appealing to. But the problem is, and I said when this happened, Gary, that Brian Cornell, the CEO of Target, should have been fired immediately for that, because the board has a responsibility. They're in the retail business. Retailers are dying on the vine. They need people walking through their stores. And you have a CEO that made a conscious decision to allow themselves to eliminate over 1 million people, and that would be 1 million families, from saying they're not going to shop at that store, when they should be making every effort they can to keep every shopper they have in an environment that is decaying dramatically.
Okay, Dan, we're out of time, but we appreciate you. Dan Celia, Financial Stewardship Ministries. Thanks again for your insights.
Great to be with you, Gary. Thank you.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
China rising, putting on a show of military muscle and greatness for the Communist government's 70th anniversary celebration in Beijing. On the same day, riot police gunned down a student demonstrator in Hong Kong. Chinese President for Life Xi Jinping says, quote, "There's no force that can shake this great nation." But what he isn't telling you is that all is not grand for the Red Dragon. His nation is being shaken by Donald Trump's tariffs and tough stance on trade. Western-backed factories are closing in China, at least 100 of them during the past several years. The rapid expansion of the Chinese economy is slowing. But now is not the time for the United States to drop its guard. Billions of taxpayer dollars must be spent to safeguard America's secrets and technology from China's cyber thievery, which, by the way, is unrelenting. Not only must we work hard to contain China economically and in cyberspace, but also in outer space. President Trump's Space Force is part of that effort. Also, we must resist Chinese violations of human rights. Remember your American history? One reason American colonists fought the Revolutionary War was because of taxation without representation. It's the same in Hong Kong. When pro-democracy student leader Joshua Wong testified before members of Congress last month, he said Hong Kong's umbrella movement has moved beyond one bill or one person.
Our most important demand is genuine structural change in Hong Kong, which means free election. Our government's lack of representation lies at the heart of the matter.
Congress must act quickly to pass the Hong Kong Human Rights Act in support of the pro-democracy movement. We must continue to press Beijing to allow universal suffrage, voting rights for citizens there. We must also stand up against China's detention of 1 million Uyghurs and its unrelenting persecution of the country's Christians. You've heard the saying, freedom is not free. It comes with a cost. Yes, China's punitive tariffs are hurting our farmers, and consumers may be paying a bit more for Chinese goods. But our president has a long-term vision to stop China from cheating and stealing its way to world dominance. Trump has said repeatedly that the goal of the United States is fair trade, creating an even playing field. Yes, America first in jobs, technology, and security. Only by maintaining a strong America can we continue to influence and help the world. And it is only through prayer, hard work, and sacrifice that America will overcome this powerful atheistic opponent. We are at a crossroads. How we react now will make a difference for future generations of Americans. We can remain vigilant and choose strength and freedom, or do nothing and end up on the ash heap of history. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Be sure to follow us on SoundCloud, Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, and Twitter. And until next time, be blessed.